Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Monday. Today I was reading in Philippians where Paul oftentimes writes about joy and rejoicing to this fellowship. We know that wonderful things were going on there. The Lord was blessing. They were abounding in so many ways. Yet he writes to them in chapter 2 and verse 3 and says, "Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself." Just because this fellowship of believers was abounding in so many areas, he said, let's not let this go to our heads. The idea of selfish ambition is the thing that causes a person to have dreams or aspirations which are probably not God's will at all. They're thinking only of themselves. It's so easy sometimes to become selfish and think, it's all about me. What do I want to get out of this endeavor? Or what would be best for me in this day? He also warns us here about conceit. That's when we begin to think too highly of ourselves. We have an opinion of ourselves that is greater than it should be, whether it's our abilities or our qualities. Romans chapter 12 and verse 3, Paul says, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly. We need to take a serious look at ourselves. When we're working through selfishness and conceit, we need a much more humble attitude. That's why he talks about working here in lowliness of mind, which means instead of comparing yourself to the worst example that we know, let's see ourselves through the eyes of God and the way Scripture points out our lives and compares it. And when we have taken on that kind of attitude of humility, then let's esteem others better than ourselves. Now, he is not talking about steaming others here. I read where a family heard they were supposed to steam their elders, and that's what they did over lunch every Sunday. Kind of went through and picked at their faults. He says to esteem them. That means to show a high regard or respect for others. When we see ourselves in a humble way, then we can certainly begin to lift up others around us. And Paul says, don't look out only for ourselves, but also for the interests of others. So today, let's seek to raise up someone else, whether it be in our own minds and our own opinions, or perhaps in some act of service, or maybe an encouragement that will raise their spirit today. And think about others rather than ourselves.